So where do you stand on this?
Well, not just because he was my former boss, but Ken Starr is right and Preet Bharara is wrong.
All right, tell me why.
Because, again, the president is the executive branch. He doesn't have to have a reason to fire a director. And with regard to the Mike Flynn investigation, his hopes and intimations about what he would like to have happen, if that's accurately recorded by Jim Comey, that doesn't constitute obstruction of justice because there would be no way, based upon that evidence, to prove corrupt intent. So, all this circus is politically interesting, but it doesn't add up to a case that you could bring before a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. And in any event, it's a sideshow because the sitting president is not going to be charged.
The president's chief accuser right now appears to be the former director of the FBI from last week's testimony. The fact that the special counsel is someone who's had a close working relationship with him, and perhaps, I only say perhaps, is a very small town, prosecutors sort of stick together in this town, defense lawyers stick together. If they have any sort of social relationship, would that be a reason that that President Trump would consider dismissing Robert Mueller or not?
Well, it might be the basis for a manufactured one, but I assume that both gentlemen, even though they are close friends, are not going to have contact with regard to the substance or subject matter of the investigation. And I think that's probably enough said in that regard. I mean, look, they've both been through this drill before many times. Bob Mueller knows how to act appropriately. There's no basis to believe that that would ever be an issue. Again, in the political process and for public consumption, you can always try, attempt to make an argument that because they're close friends that a personnel decision has to be made. But I mean, you led the piece with the argument that the president's lawyers haven't ruled out removing Bob Mueller as special counsel, and yes, the president does have that authority. But, more importantly, they haven't ruled it in either. I don't see any reason to think that that would occur, but you never say never.
There's a very different world between the legal world and the political world, isn't there, as we look at these investigations?
Of course, but, in that distinction, that's everything. And although it may be somewhat difficult for for everyone always to grasp the distinction, we're in a political process first and foremost. I mean, it seems to me that Bob Mueller's charge is to try to get through this investigation and get to the bottom of this as promptly and as responsibly as he can, and ideally within the period of the next 18 months, because, why? Most importantly, because that's in the public's interest and the country's interest. And it also is, doing a disservice, it seems to me, to the president to have this thing and allow this thing to hang over his administration, because it potentially does damage to the country in the interim. And that's why it's important that we get to answers with regard to collusion or not, to the question of whether or not Michael Flynn made false statements or not, whether cases should be brought or not, and a report ultimately, presumably, to Congress after it's approved by the Deputy Attorney General, so that the public can find out and take the measure of what's happened here.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.